Why is it that when I first load my page, everything seems to work just fine, but then when I navigate away to another page and I come back, I get this error? Well, it turns out that this is actually quite a common issue that new TanStack Start users have been facing. So I'm not the only person that's ran into this, but I'm also glad I ran into this problem because it really forced me to try to understand how TanStack Start works. So let's talk about this. So at first, the problem isn't obvious because things seem to work and then they only break in certain situations. Now, after being forced to actually read the docs, I realized that my problem was in my lack of understanding of the TanStack Start code execution model, which is crucial because understanding where our code runs is fundamental to building TanStack Start applications. See, in my website, I want to take advantage of SSR, so I'm loading as much as I can on the server side, and in my case, I'm using the AppWrite Node SDK. But you're going to get this issue anytime you're running code that's meant to be on the server, especially if you're accessing your database directly. Now, the reason why myself and so many others are running into this issue is because TanStack is isomorphic by default. And all that means is that your code runs both on the server and on the client. So on the initial page load, our code is being executed on the server side. And in my case, I'm calling products from my route loader, so everything works fine on the initial page load. And this is where my code is supposed to be executed. Now, after this, on the initial page load and after hydration and during navigation, the client side takes over and now all our code is being run on the client. And this is where our problem occurs. We are running server-side code on the client side now when we're navigating, and this is where we run into compatibility issues. So if you have a server SDK, most likely it's not going to work on the client side. Now, if you're familiar with Next.js, there's several different ways you can go about running code on the server side. We have server actions, but those are for mutations. You can always create API endpoints and call those routes, or you can use server components to get data. Now, with TanStack, there's actually an easier way of handling this if we want code to be executed on the server. Now, TanStack doesn't have server components, but it does have something called server functions, which allow you to execute code on the server side. And honestly, I think it's much easier and cleaner than what Next.js has to offer. The beauty of server functions is that they can be called virtually anywhere in our code on the client side or server side. So we can call them in our loaders, inside of our component, but whenever we call them, the code is still executed on the server. So how do we actually solve this problem? Well, what I can do here is in my code base with this get products function, I can simply wrap this in the create server fn method. And this is going to create a server function and I can execute my original code inside of the handler. So now any code that runs in here will execute server side. So if I go to my page and I navigate away, and then if I come back, we no longer get this issue. Now, I also have a products detail page, which has the same problem because I'm trying to execute all of this on the server side. So if I navigate to the page, it breaks, but if I manually refresh and this is the first page that load, everything seems to work fine. So the solution here is also to wrap this in a server function, but because we are passing down data, I'm going to take a minute to teach you a little bit more about how server functions work. So first, I'm going to wrap this inside of a server function, and then we're going to go ahead and pass down an ID. But because this is a server function, we're no longer passing the ID down to the get product function directly. So it's not as simple as just passing it through. Now, in this case, a server function accepts a single data parameter, so we'll pass our ID down through that data parameter as an attribute. On the receiving end, all I need to do is go ahead and access data and then extract that ID value. And once I have that ID, everything should work like before. So if I go to the page, now I can navigate around through my website and everything is being executed on the server, so it works. Now, there's so much more to cover on the topic of server functions that I left out. I'll save those for another video, but I did want to quickly mention one thing, and that is the fact that we're actually passing data now between the client and server anytime we're passing this ID down. And anytime you're passing data to the server, it's a good idea to validate that data. And in this case, I want to show you how to use the input validator here. So we can always set this input validator method here, make sure that the ID is of the correct type. And now this creates better practices for actually passing data between the client and server. All right, so that's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you all in the next video.